Your Paycheck Advance app says no interest. Here's the part the ad doesn't say. Running short before payday is one of the most common money stresses there is, and lately, the ads promising to fix it are everywhere. Apps like Clover, Earnin, Dave, Bridget, Moneyline, Instacash, and Tilt all make the same basic pitch: link your bank account, verify you have recurring direct deposits, and get $25 to $1,000 of your next paycheck early. No credit check. Some say no interest. It sounds like free money when you need it most. A safety net built right into your phone. And for a lot of people, that pitch is exactly what gets them to link their account before reading any further. Here's the thing. Most Paycheck Advance apps don't actually charge interest in the traditional sense. Instead, they typically build their business around two other charges, plus, for a few apps, a third one that has nothing to do with money at all. Let's walk through all three, because understanding the mechanics is what lets you see the real cost underneath the marketing. The first is the instant funding fee. Most of these apps will move your money for free, eventually. If you're willing to wait 1 to 3 business days for a standard transfer, many advances cost nothing up front. But almost nobody in a cash crunch wants to wait 3 days. That's the whole reason you open the app in the first place. So if you want the money in minutes instead, that convenience usually costs somewhere between $1.99 and $16.78, depending on the app and the amount you're advancing. That fee is where a meaningful share of these companies' revenue comes from, because speed is exactly what a person in a cash crunch is paying for. The second charge is the tip. It's optional in name. Nobody is forced to leave one. But these apps commonly display a pre-selected default tip amount already highlighted when the screen loads, and some users report being nudged toward tipping in order to keep access to future advances. That tip doesn't go to a person who helped you. It goes straight to the company, and for some of these products, it's actually the main source of revenue. Not a courtesy add-on, but the business model itself, dressed up in the language of gratitude. And then there's a third mechanism a few apps use, including Clover, generating revenue by having users complete surveys, watch ads, or link retail accounts in exchange for advance eligibility. No money changes hands in that transaction, at least not directly. But it's still a cost. It's your time spent watching ads and answering questions instead of doing something else. And it's your data, your shopping habits, your spending patterns, handed over to a company that profits from knowing more about you. So that's the real business model underneath the no-interest pitch: an instant funding fee, a pre-selected tip, and, for some apps, your time and data on top of that. None of those show up on a truth in lending disclosure, because technically none of them are labeled interest. Which raises the obvious question: what do they actually add up to once you do the math the way every other lender is required to? Here's how we answer that. Every credit card, every personal loan, every mortgage in this country has to disclose its costs the same way, as an annual percentage rate, or APR. It's a standardized way of taking any fee over any time period and stretching it out to what that same cost would look like over a full year. That's what lets you compare a credit card to a car loan to a payday loan on equal footing. And it's the same tool we're going to point at these advance apps, even though they don't call themselves lenders and don't put an APR on the screen. So let's run the numbers. Say you take a $100 advance, pay a $5 fee for it, and repay it in a week. A pretty typical scenario for one of these apps. $5 on $100 is 5%, but that 5% isn't for a year. It's for 1 week out of the 52 weeks in a year. Stretch that same weekly cost out across a full year, the way APR requires, and it works out to an effective rate in the neighborhood of 260%. 260%. And that's before anything else gets added on. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor. Money never came with a manual. Bills, debt, the unexpected. You don't have to face them alone. Financial Foundations of America, laying the groundwork for prosperity. Start free at financialfoundationsofamerica.org. And we're back. Now stack a second charge on top. Add an instant funding fee for getting the money in minutes instead of days, and a tip on top of that. Even a modest one. And the effective annualized rate on some transactions climbs well past 260%. The math doesn't care that each individual fee feels small in dollar terms. Short repayment windows are exactly what turns small flat fees into triple-digit annualized rates. That's just how the arithmetic of annualizing a short-term cost works, whether it's a bank overdraft, a payday loan, or an app on your phone. So it's not that $5 sounds like a lot of money. On its own, it doesn't. It's that the same calculation used to describe every other form of credit in America, applied honestly to these apps, shows what you're really paying for convenience. And convenience, it turns out, can be one of the most expensive things you buy when you're already short on cash. You may have seen headlines about legal challenges to this industry. At least one major provider is currently facing active class action litigation. Plaintiffs allege that the combination of tips and fees functions as a disguised loan, one that should have to disclose an APR just like any other lender, with effective annual rates in the 300 to 500% range. They argue it should be regulated accordingly. These cases are ongoing, unresolved, and the companies involved dispute the claims entirely. We're not taking a position on who's right here. That's for the courts to decide. What we are flagging is that the core question being tested in that courtroom is the exact same question we just walked through with a calculator. Is this a fee, or is it functionally a very expensive loan wearing different language? That's worth understanding for yourself, regardless of how the litigation turns out. None of this means these apps are never worth using. For some people, in some situations, a small early access fee genuinely beats a bounce check charge or a payday loan down the street. This isn't a call to never use them, but it is a case for comparing the real cost against alternatives every time before you tap Advance. Start with your employer. A growing number of workplaces now offer earned wage access as an actual benefit, often at a lower cost, or no cost at all, compared to the consumer apps doing the same thing. Next, check with a local credit union. Many now offer small-dollar, low-interest loans built specifically to compete with payday-style products, with real underwriting instead of a fee schedule buried in the terms. Third, build a small buffer over time. Even $500 set aside can cover the exact gap these apps are built to fill, without a recurring fee attached every single time you're short. And finally, before you link your account to any of these apps, read the fee schedule. Know the instant transfer fee, know the default tip setting, and know whether signing up quietly enrolls you in a recurring subscription. The goal here isn't to tell you these apps are good or bad. Plenty of people use them responsibly and come out ahead of whatever their alternative would have been. The goal is to make sure you're the one deciding, with the real numbers sitting in front of you, instead of just the ones featured in the ad. Want to see what your own advance actually costs, in your own numbers? We built a free tool for exactly that, the true cost of a cash advance calculator, live now on our site. Just enter the advance amount, any instant funding fee, any tip, and your repayment window, and it converts all of it into an effective APR you can actually compare, the same way we just walked through here. Find it at financialfoundations.org/cash-advance-calculator, linked in this episode's description and in the article this video is based on. Run your own numbers before you tap Advance. This episode is for educational purposes only and isn't financial or legal advice. Product names are used to describe publicly available features. They're not endorsements. That's Loose Chain from Financial Foundations of America, laying the groundwork for prosperity.